Namaskar students. Hope you are hale and hearty, taking care of your health and your studies. I know you were waiting for this video, so here we are. Today, what we are going to do is very important for all of us. Before we begin that, I just want to ask you one simple thing. When we play soccer, apart from the goalkeeper, all the team members can only use their feet to play with the ball. If they touch the ball with the hand, they'll be penalized. In the same manner, if a cricketer is standing outside the crease and the wicketkeeper takes the bails off, they are stumped. This is the rule of the game. Talking about the rule and regulation, our entire life is governed by them. If we don't wear a helmet while driving, we'll be penalized. So, what we are going to talk about today is a book which contains all the rules and regulations related to the citizens of India. Something which gives strong emphasis to every citizen's life. Something which has no substitution. That thing is our Indian Constitution. Let's do chapter number 1 from our civics book, Indian Constitution. Today, most countries in the world have a constitution. While all democratic countries are likely to have a constitution, it is not necessary that all countries that have a constitution are democratic. The constitution serves several purposes. First, it lays out certain ideals that form the basis of the kind of country that we as citizens aspire to live in. Or, put another way, a constitution tells us what the fundamental nature of our society is. A country is usually made up of different communities, of people who share certain beliefs, but may not necessarily agree on all issues. A constitution helps serve as a set of rules and principles that all persons in a country can agree upon as the basis of the way in which they want the country to be governed. This includes not only the type of government, but also an agreement on certain ideals that they all believe the country should uphold. In the first picture given in your books, you can see the country of Nepal has witnessed several people's struggle for democracy. There was a people's struggle in 1990 that established democracy that lasted for around 12 years until 2002. In October 2002, King Gyanendra, citing the Maoist uprising in the countryside as his reason, began taking over different aspects of the government with the army's assistance. The king then finally took over as head of the government in February 2005. In November 2005, the Maoists joined other political parties to sign a 12-point agreement. The agreement signaled to the larger public an imminent return to democracy and peace. In 2006, this people's movement for democracy began gaining immense force. It repeatedly refused the small concessions that the king made, and finally, in 2006, in the month of April, the king restored the third parliament and asked the political parties to form a government. in 2007, Nepal adopted an interim constitution. The above photos show scenes from the People's Movement for Democracy in 2006. Now let's try and understand what we mean by this through two contrasting situations in the recent history of Nepal, a country that borders India on the north. Until quite recently, Nepal was a monarchy. The previous constitution of Nepal, which had been adopted in 1990, reflected the fact that the final authority rested with the king. A people's movement in Nepal fought for several decades to establish democracy, and in 2006 they finally succeeded in putting an end to the powers of the king. Now, the people have to write a new constitution to establish Nepal as a democracy. The reason that they do not want to continue with the previous constitution is because it does not reflect the ideas of the country that they want Nepal to be and that they have fought for. As in the game of football, in which a change in the constitutive rules will change the game altogether. Nepal, by moving from monarchy to democratic government, needs to change all its constitutive rules in order to usher in a new society. This is why the people of Nepal are in the process of writing a new constitution for the country. The caption alongside elaborates Nepal's struggle for democracy. The second important purpose of a constitution is to define the nature of a country's political system. For example, Nepal's earlier constitution stated that the country was to be ruled by the king and his council of ministers. In countries that have adopted a democratic form, in laying out certain important guidelines that govern decision making within these societies. In a democracy, we choose our leaders so that they can exercise power responsibility on our behalf. However, there is always the possibility that these leaders might misuse their authority, and the Constitution usually provides safeguards against this. This misuse of authority can result in gross. Now look at the picture given in the books. Injustice as demonstrated in the classroom situation. Over here, Suresh is the class monitor. He is a bully. His classmates are not too fond of him. Mrs. Rao, the class teacher, has to leave the classroom on some urgent work. She asks Suresh to mind the class. Suresh starts picking on Anil. Anil, today I am going to report you to Mrs. Rao. But what have I done? When Mrs. Rao returns to the class, Ma'am, while you were away, Anil kept talking loudly and kept disturbing the class. He would not listen to me. Anil, you will have to stay back after school today and write, I will not disobey the class monitor 100 times. But, ma'am, I did not do anything. In a democracy, we choose our leaders so that they can exercise power responsibly on our behalf. In this picture, Suresh takes advantage of the power given to him. However, there is always the possibility that these leaders might misuse their authority, just the way Suresh did. And the Constitution usually provides safeguards against this. Another important function that a constitution plays in a democracy is to ensure that a dominant group does not use its power against other. less powerful people or groups. The following situation demonstrates one such condition in the classroom. Over here, students have just had their free period. Girls want to play basketball and boys wants to play cricket. Let's play basketball today for a change. No, we will play cricket. The teachers decide to settle the problem with show of hands. As the girls are in minority, boys win. He 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 he. We have won. Obviously, there are more boys in the class. We always have to do what the boys want because they are in majority. Ma'am should think of another way to make decisions so that our wishes are also heard. Such unhealthy situations can occur in a democratic societies too, where a majority can continuously enforce decisions that exclude minorities and go against their interests. As the above storyboard illustrates, every society is prone to that tyranny of the majority. The Constitution usually contains rules that ensure minorities are not excluded from anything that is routinely available to the majority. Another reason why we have a constitution is precisely to prevent this tyranny or domination by the majority of a minority. This can refer to one community dominating another. Inter community domination or members of one community dominating others with the same community, that is intra community domination. Moving forward, the third significant reason why we need a constitution is to save us from ourselves. This may sound a little strange, but what is meant by this is that we might at times feel strongly about an issue that might go against our larger interest, and the Constitution helps us guard against this. In this picture, Shabnam is in a fix. She has a decision to make. I have 2 chapters left to revise for tomorrow's test, but it's time for my favorite TV program. I am dying to watch it. But if I do, I won't be able to finish my revision in time. Shabnam, why are you looking so worried? I want to watch the TV program, but I have a test tomorrow. If you all watch TV, I will also want to watch TV. I have an idea. What if no one watches TV tonight? Then I may not be tempted. The next morning, when she is sitting in the exam, she thinks to herself, it's a good thing I did not watch TV. There are so many questions from the last 2 chapters. Similarly, the Constitution helps to protect us against certain decisions that we might take that could have an adverse effect on the larger principles that the country believes in. For example, it is possible that many people who live in a democracy might come to strongly feel that party politics has become so acrimonious that we need a strong dictator to set this right. Swept by this emotion, they might not realize that in the long run, dictatorial rule goes against all their interests. A good constitution does not allow these whims to change its basic structure. It does not allow for the easy overthrow of provisions that guarantee right of citizens and protect their freedom. From this discussion, we can understand that Constitution plays a very important role in democratic societies. Let's take up the Indian Constitution and its key features. By the beginning of the 20th century, the Indian national movement had been active in the struggle for independence from British rule for several decades. During the freedom struggle, the nationalists had devoted a great deal of time to imagining and planning what a free India would be like. Under the British, they had been forced to obey rules that they had very little role in making. The long experience of authoritarian rule under the colonial state convinced Indians that free India should be a democracy in which everyone should be treated equally and be allowed to participate in government. What remained to be done then was to work out the ways in which a democratic government would be set up in India and the rules that would determine its functioning. This was done not by one person, but by a group of around 300 people who became members of the Constituent Assembly in 1946 and who met periodically for the next 3 years to write India's constitution. These members of the Constituent Assembly had a huge task before them. The country was made up of several different communities who spoke different languages, belonged to different religions, and had distinct cultures. Also, when the constitution was being written, India was going through considerable turmoil. The partition of the country into India and Pakistan was imminent. Some of the princely states remained undecided about their future, and the socio-economic condition of the vast mass of people appeared dismal. All of these issues played on the minds of members of Constituent Assembly as they drafted the constitution. They rose to the occasion and gave this country a visionary document that reflects a respect for maintaining diversity while preserving national unity. The final document also reflects their concern for eradicating poverty through socio-economic reforms, as well as emphasizing the crucial role the people can play in choosing their representatives. Let's take up unity, socio-economic reforms, and representation. Keeping in mind the concerns of diversity, unity, socio-economic reforms, and representatives that the authors of this document were grappling with, try and understand the ways in which they tried to balance these concerns with their commitment to transform independent India into a strong democratic society. First of such feature was federalism. This refers to the existence of more than one level of government in the country. In India, we have governments at state level and at the center level. Panchayati Raj is the third tier of government. We looked at the functioning of the state government in class 6 book. The vast number of communities in India meant that a system of government needed to be devised that did not involve only persons sitting in the capital city of New Delhi and making decisions for everyone. Instead, it was important to have another level of government in the states so that decisions could be made for that particular area. While each state in India enjoys autonomy in exercising powers on certain issues, subjects of national concern require that all of these states follows the law of central government. The constitution contains list that details the issues that each tier of government can make laws on. In addition, the constitution also specifies where each tier of government can get the money from for the work that it does. Under federalism, the states are not merely agents of the federal government, but draw their authority from the constitution as well. All persons in India are governed by laws and policies made by each of their level of government. Moving on, let's talk about parliamentary form of government. The different tier of government that we just read consist of representatives who are elected by the people. The Constitution of India guarantees universal adult suffrage for all citizens. When they were making the Constitution, the members of Constituent Assembly felt that the freedom struggle had prepared the masses for universal adult suffrage and that this would help encourage a democratic mindset and break the clutches of traditional caste, class, and gender hierarchies. This means that the people of India have a direct role in electing their representatives. Also, every citizen of the country, irrespective of his her social background, can also contest in elections. These representatives are accountable to the people. Let's take separation of powers. According to the Constitution, there are three organs of the government. These are legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The legislature refers to our elected representatives. The executive is a smaller group of people who are responsible for implementing laws and running the government. The judiciary refers to the system of courts in this country. In order to prevent the misuse of power by any one branch of the government, the Constitution says that each of these organs should exercise different powers, through which each organ acts as a check on the other organs of the government, and this ensures the balance of power between all three. From separation of power, now we move on to the heart and soul of our Constitution, fundamental rights. The section on fundamental rights has often been referred to as the conscience of the Indian Constitution. Colonial rule had created a certain suspicion of the state in the minds of the nationalists that they wanted to ensure that a set of written rights would guard against the misuse of state power in the independent India. Fundamental rights, therefore, protect citizens against the arbitrary and absolute exercise of power by the state. The Constitution thus guarantees the rights of individual against the state as well as against other individuals. Moreover, the various minority communities also expressed the need for the Constitution to include rights that would protect their groups. The Constitution, therefore, also guarantees the rights of minorities against the majority. As Dr. Ambedkar has said about these fundamental rights, their object is twofold. The first objective is that every citizen must be in a position to claim those rights. And secondly, these rights must be binding upon every authority that has got the power to make laws. In Indian Constitution, there are total 6 fundamental rights. Taking them up, the first is right to equality. All persons are equal before the law. This means that all persons shall be equally protected by laws of the country. It also states that no citizen can be discriminated against on the basis of their religion, caste, or gender. Every person has access to all public places, including playgrounds, hotels, shops. The state cannot discriminate against anyone in matters of employment, but there are exceptions to this that you will read about later in the book. The practice of untouchability has also been abolished by incorporating this fundamental right to the Constitution. Moving on, It is right to freedom. This includes the right to freedom of speech and expression, the right to form associations, the right to move freely and reside in any part of the country, and the right to practice any profession, occupation, or business. Then is the right against exploitation. The Constitution prohibits human trafficking, forced labor, and employment of children under 14 years of age. Then we have right to freedom of religion. Religious freedom is provided to all the citizens. Every person has a right to practice, profess, and propagate the religion of their choice. Now comes cultural and educational rights. The Constitution states that all minorities, religious or linguistic, can set up their own educational institutions in order to preserve and develop their own culture. Last but not the least is right to constitutional remedies. This allows citizens to move to the court if they believe that any of their fundamental right has been violated by the state. From fundamental rights, we move on to secularism. A secular state is one in which the state does not officially promote any one religion. We will read more about this in the following chapters. We can understand the way in which a country's history often determines the kind of constitution that a country adopts for itself. The Constitution plays a crucial role in laying out the ideals that we would like all citizens of the country to adhere to. In the rest of the book, as well as in your higher classes, you will read more about these different features of Indian Constitution. Understand more substantively what they mean. In the last photos shown, various members of the Constituent Assembly signing a copy of Constitution at its final session on 24th of January 1950. First shows Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru signing. The second photo is of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, President of the Constituent Assembly. The last photo shows following persons from right to left. Shri Jairam Das Daulatram, Minister for Food and Agriculture, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Health Minister, Dr. John Mathai, Finance Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Deputy Prime Minister, and behind him, Shri Jagjeevan Ram, Labour Minister. So, how did you like it? I know. Today's video must have answered many of your queries. Why do we need a constitution? What help does it do to the citizens and the country? Let's analyze what we have learned from today's video. On your screen, you can see words given in two different columns. You have to match the words given in column A with the words given in column B so that it makes sense. So, first and foremost, Panchayati Raj. Yes, this is the third tier of government. Minorities have the right to preserve their own culture. This is a part of cultural and educational rights. Father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Constitution comes into force 26 January 1950, the Republic Day of India. Now there are certain statements with blanks to it. You have to fill it with the appropriate word. The Indian state has a dash form of government. Democratic, very good. The Constitution of India guarantees dash for all citizens. Universal adult suffrage. which is also known as universal adult franchise, under which every citizen who's above the age of 18 or 18 above, have the right to vote. Under the right against exploitation, the Constitution prohibits dash, dash, and children working under dash years of age. Under the right against exploitation, the Constitution prohibits trafficking, forced labor, and children working under 14 years of age. In 1934, the Indian National Congress made the demand for a Constituent Assembly. It is very good. Okay, now you have a question. There are 4 options to it. You have to pick the correct option. Let's do it. So what is a constitution? Set of rules of the court, set of rules to govern the country, set of rules of the company, or none of these? Correct. Constitution is set of rules to govern the country. Okay, so what is a preamble? This is the idle of the line, format of the rules, introduction to our constitution, or none of these? Preamble is the introduction to our constitution. Very right. What is democracy then? Is it rule of the people, rule of the king, rule of the British, or none of these? Very easy. Democracy is rule of people. Last question. What do you mean by monarchy? Rule of people, rule of king, rule of British, or none of these? Monarchy is rule of king. I hope you enjoyed today's video. We'll be back with another video. Till then, take care of yourself, stay safe, stay healthy, keep reading. Namaskar.